All right, welcome in, everybody. We're back in the studio day after the 49ers lose to the Vikings 23-17. And I get online after this game. It was predictable yesterday, but some of it has continued into today. There is just massive misconception about the quality of play that Brock Purdy delivered for the 49ers yesterday. And it's surprising to me because the raw statistics are really, really good. Normally, people will see really good raw statistics and wrongly think that a quarterback was good. They'll see, 319 yards. Oh, he was awesome. There are a lot of 319-yard performances that aren't very good. But Purdy did throw for 319 yards yesterday, and I'll tell you that it was just opposite. This was a very good 319-yard performance. There wasn't a lot of garbage yardage in there. In fact, everything that Brock Purdy delivered, he had to earn. And that's because the 49ers have a separation problem. This is from NFL Next Gen Stats, and it matches exactly what we have seen on tape. And I've watched the tape now twice of 49ers Vikings. The lowest average separation this is by yard, of any NFL team through two games belongs to the 49ers. Their targets, so Brock Purdy's targets, are gaining less separation than any other team in the NFL. Last year, the 49ers were the 12th best team as far as separation went. This year, they are worse than the Panthers through two games. They're worse than the Colts, the Titans, and the Patriots. Only 2.9 yards on average of separation. So Brock Purdy is having to throw into tighter windows than any other quarterback in the National Football League. Last year, listen to this. Last year, Brock Purdy threw into tight windows about 12% of the time. This year, through two games, he's throwing into tight windows over 24% of the time, which is the highest rate in the league. So there's just less room to operate. Now, obviously, Christian McCaffrey's loss is a huge part of this problem, but it is only part of the problem. McCaffrey exerts a gravitational force on the football field to where linebackers are going to take either a step toward him, two steps toward him, or at least lean toward him, because Christian McCaffrey is Christian McCaffrey and he's the outlet for Brock Purdy. So the defense has to pay attention to him, especially given how dangerous he is after the ball is in his hands. Safeties are going to do the same thing. Christian McCaffrey has even drawn some cornerback attention before. Put simply, he's a gravitational force, and while he's out, the 49ers don't have him. It makes separation for everybody else more difficult. But that is far from the only problem for the 49ers. Another problem for San Francisco is the way that the offense has been running so far this year. This is a look at yards per route run. So this is going to give you an idea of how much each target is used and how efficiently they're used when the football does go in their direction. This compares yards per route run between 2023 and 2024. Last season, first we could zoom in on last season's. Brandon Ayuk was at 3.2 yards per route run, which is excellent. That was number 3 in all of football, behind only Tyreek Hill and Nico Collins. 49ers had 3 players over 2.5, which is also excellent. Christian McCaffrey at 1.5. But even if he wasn't generating a lot of the yards on receiving routes, Christian McCaffrey was opening stuff up for other guys. Well, move into 2024. Look at the difference. I'll put it here on the full screen. Whereas Brandon Ayuk was at 3.2 yards per route run throughout 2023, for the first 2 games of this season, Ayuk is at 1.1. So he's gone from number 3 in the NFL in yards per route run to number 100 in the NFL in yards per route run. Ayuk is just not an integral part of this offense at this point. And that's a problem for the 49ers, especially since they don't have this guy right here, Christian McCaffrey. So Deebo Samuel's picked up a little bit of slack. He's gone from 2.5 to 2.6 yards per route run, but not a whole lot. Juwan Jennings has entered the chat, 2.1 yards per route run. He wasn't a qualifier last year, so got to give him some credit. Kittle's actually a little bit lower than he was last season. I think he's being deployed on more routes this year, so the denominator's higher. And Kyle Juszczyk has also entered the chat as they try to make up for not just the lack of Christian McCaffrey, but the lack of Brandon Ayuk, who obviously missed training camp for the 49ers. So Ayuk is not in form yet. He's not in sync with Brock Purdy. Obviously, the blame there goes on Brandon Ayuk for sitting on a contract that didn't change for the last 3 weeks. But the reality is the reality for the 49ers. Regardless of how you toss the blame around, they're not firing on all full cylinders offensively. And as you can see through the yards per route run division, a lot of that problem is because Brandon Ayuk is not delivering at his normal efficiency. Let's look at separation with the wide receivers right now. So I say that they aren't separating at 2023 levels. Well, first, I'm going to keep that covered up with the title down there. First, look at the 2023 levels of separation. This is yards again. So this is distance measured by the Next Gen Stats tracking data. McCaffrey, a lot of separation last year, 4.1 yards of separation. Samuel, 3.7. Kittle, 3.3. Ayuk, 2.9. Now, Ayuk had a great year last year. He separated really well. He is the X receiver. So he's going to be facing the best cover guys on opposing teams. Cornerback 1 usually goes against the X receiver. So Brandon Ayuk was at 2.9 last year. So here's our grand reveal. Let's see how Brandon Ayuk is doing this season. 1.9. From 2.9 to 1.9. Brandon Ayuk has a full yardage less of average separation through 2 games for the 49ers than he did last year. Deebo Samuel, it's obviously constricted on him. I think Deebo's playing great football right now, but he's fighting through crowds. In fact, we have the image from yesterday where Deebo Samuel was averaging almost no separation, yet he had over 100 receiving yards because he's a complete bulldog out there and he's able to catch the ball in traffic. But the Vikings out-separated the 49ers by a whole heck of a lot in that game last year. But Ayuk is not generating the separation that he did last season. Ayuk is not generating the targets that he did last season. And with no Christian McCaffrey, that is an especially big problem for the 49ers. Despite all of that, Brock Purdy completed 78% of his passes yesterday. So we have NFL Next Gen Stats measures completion percentage over expectation. That is going to take a look at the tracking data of where every player is, and it could look at all the formations and defensive strength, everything, and it could measure where an average quarterback would perform if he was given the same set of circumstances. So yesterday, Brock Purdy posted, as you could see right here, a plus 17.5% completion percentage over expectation. All the tracking data said that based on the tight coverages yesterday, the lack of separation yesterday, the pass rush yesterday, the 49ers also struggled pass protecting. We saw all the pressures that they gave up. Trent Williams gave up 4. Colton Mikovits gave up 6. NFL Next Gen Stats said that the average quarterback would have completed 60% of his passes under those circumstances. Brock Purdy completed 78% of his passes. So his completion percentage above expectation or over expectation was plus 17.5%. Over the first 2 games, Brock Purdy ranks second in the NFL. Derek Carr, who is just absolutely on fire, is the only quarterback who's better. Plus 11.7% over 2 games. Purdy plus 10.5%. over 2 games. There's no other quarterback over 10%. So that's the good news for the 49ers. Their quarterback is playing at a very high level. Pinpoint accuracy from the Juwan Jennings 4th down throw to, I could go through the whole list. almost everything was into a tight window. Inevitably, if you're throwing it a tight window after tight window after tight window, even prime Tom Brady would have a pass batted away or batted up into the air for an interception. So the 49ers need to ease the burden off of Brock Purdy. Brandon Ayuk needs to wake up. He needs to start delivering because Christian McCaffrey is not going to be walking through that door for at least a few more weeks. All right, 49ers starting their conference call a little bit early. So we're going to hear from Kyle Shanahan right now. But the message here is that Brock Purdy was way better yesterday than the casuals are giving him credit for.